Alright, today I'm going to be showing you how to properly plumb your 66DX pump. These come with an unloader already out of the box. I'm not going to be showing you how to change that today, but instead just plumb it. I'm going to be installing on this pump a 3/8 of an inch female plug, a 1/2 inch garden hose adapter, a 1/2 inch thermal adapter, and a 3/8 plug. Also going to be putting on the chemical injector. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the thermal adapter on using a little bit of blue sealant or Loctite. I'm just going to get a good amount on there. And I go in and out a couple times just to make sure the Loctite gets on there spread evenly. And you want to keep in mind as you're doing this, this is a brass pump, so when you're tightening these down, you don't want to go too crazy. You just want it to be on there nice and snug. It doesn't have to be the tightest thing you've ever done. So I got it on there pretty tight. Before I move on to the next step, I like to make sure I have this pointed downward, so that if water does come shooting out of there while I'm using my pump, it doesn't shoot hot water onto my legs or anything, it just shoots it down. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and plug up this side. Once again, I'm going to be using more sealant there, or some thread lock. A good amount on there. Thread it in and out a couple of times just to make sure it gets nice and tight. And just like I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be the tightest thing I've ever put on there, because you can damage the brass if you put something too tight. Just want to make sure I get a good seal. That's pretty tight. Got the Loctite in there, it'll keep it from leaking water. So now that that's all done, okay, so now we're going to be working on the other side of the pump here. This is where your water comes in. This is where you're going to be connecting your pressure washer hose. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to be putting a garden hose connector on here. We are not going to be using the Loctite this time around. Instead, I'm going to be using some white Teflon tape, and I do that just because with the spring on here it gets a little messy with the Loctite, so I use the Teflon instead. With the white Teflon tape, you want to get a nice even layer. You really only need to go around 2 full times, and that'll do it. You don't have to go any more than that. Once I do that, I'm going to remove this little filter that's in here. Sometimes it wants to fight you. It comes right out, and you see I'm going to be using an Allen key to tighten that up. So here's my Allen key. Go ahead and thread that on there, giving it a nice snug feel. Like I said, don't have to go crazy. Nice and snug. You want to make sure you still have a little play on that, so that ease of use when you go to remove your hose. Now it's on there nice and tight. That is done. Always make sure to put your filter back in there. So I'm just going to get this back in there, just like that. I like to use a pen or maybe a screwdriver, kind of give it a few rotations, and it'll fall right in place. And there it is. Second to last is your female plug. This is where your high pressure hose is going to go. You're also going to want to use some Loctite right on there, just like that. Get a few in and out. Make sure it gets nice and spread. Nice and tight, just like that. The last thing I'm going to be doing is putting on the chemical injector here. It's pretty simple. This is the filter tip. This is the hose. One end you're just going to snug down on here, just like that. The other end's going to snug right down onto your filter, and that'll do it. And that's how you plumb your 66 DX.